The difference between object mode and edit mode. So over here we currently have a cube in the scene. So I'm just going to press X to delete it and select it and say okay, delete the object. So now we're going to press Shift A and then we're going to add in a circle. Alright. So currently in object mode you can see it just shows a line. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is we're going to go into object mode. So I'm just zooming in and we can go into object mode by pressing tab, which now it will show you a number of vertices. So or you can just go over here to the header and just go over there and select edit mode. So currently we see these dots around the shape. So what are these dots? So these dots are called vertices. So currently we see that we have this selected over here in the header, which is the vertices. If we then go over and go to the second one, it's called edge, right? So if I click on the edge, you now see it looks like a circle. However, if I click onto the circle, you then see now that it's selected with the edges, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to vertex mode, right? And I'm going to click and select everything. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press E. So what does E do? So E does extruding. So as soon as you press E, you can see that there's a number of things that's happening. You can see now that it's then extruded out from those vertices upwards, right? So if you press Z, and then it's going to extrude on the Z axis. Okay, so let's just say, for example, I wanted to round about over there. Now you can see that the object went from a circle over to a small cylinder. Okay, so let's just move this over here. And then the next thing that I want to do is now to see the difference between these three options over here. So we have the vertices, the edge, and then lastly we have the face select. So face selects are, as soon as you select it over there, you can see now we have a face select over there, right? So with the vertices, you can select each and every individual point just like that. Or if you hold down shift, you then can select more than one vertex at a time. Okay, and if you go to edge, you can then select different edges, which is two vertices that is combined. Okay, so if you go over to the face select, you can then also select more than one face, which is four vertices which is combined and that is created as a face. Okay, so the next option that we want to look at is pressing tab again, and you can see that there's a limit number of tools over here. As soon as you go to edit mode, you then have more options over there. For example, we have extrude, we have insert faces, we have bevel, and so forth. And these are some of the type of things that we're going to be dealing on later on, right? So that's just to keep in mind. Okay, so now that we have our cylinder, let's just go over here. Now that we have our cylinder, we can select everything by pressing Alt and selecting everything. Okay, like selecting all the vertices. And now if I do orbit around to the bottom of this cylinder, we can then press F, and now we've just filled it. Okay, so now that we've filled the cylinder, this looks more like a cup. Alright, it looks like a cup. Okay, so now if we go into object mode, we can then move it around. Okay, and then if we go into edit mode, we can then customize this specific shape to exactly as to what we want. Okay, another thing to look at is modifiers. So modifiers would be going over here to the shape over here. It says modifiers, and you can hover over all of these just to see in the proper step what exactly they call. So modifiers over here will give a specific shape to a specific object. Okay, for example, let's just add modifiers, and when we can go over here, it shows edit, generate, deform, and physics. Right, so let's look at generate. So generate, we have the array bevel, boolean, and so forth, right, which gives you different options. Okay, for example, the one that we want to use is called solidify. Okay, so what this does is it gives it a depth to the object. For example, if we so I'm just going to show you. If we do deselectors, you can see the shape is there. However, if we place it on, you can now see there's a bevel. If we wanted to change the thickness, for example, we would go over here to thickness and just increase it, and now you can see that it looks something like this, right? So another thing to keep note also is that if we wanted to smooth out the shape, right, we can just press W and then it will say shade smooth, which is under objects, right, which is the shortcut key. However, you can also go over here to this object and then we can just have a look at this and shade smooth. So now you see that it's shade smooth. However, it does show a bit of a problem because of the different color variation that we currently see. Now, when it comes to dealing with edit mode, right, there's a number of stuff that we need to consider, especially when we're adding modifiers. For example, if an object does show two different colors, it means that something currently is wrong. So what does that mean? That means that we need to add a loop. So what is a loop? Okay, let's go into edit mode. So if we go into edit mode, we can see that currently on the inside, we see that the object is there, the vertex is there. However, we're not seeing what's happening on the outside because of the thickness that's happening on the positive side of it, meaning that it's going to be on the outside. Now another thing to do is we can then select it and let it go on the inside, for example, right? And you have two different options. So you can either go on the minus, which will then create the thickness to go on the inside instead of the outside. Okay, so let's just get a perfect shape around about there. And then what I'm going to do is go over here to this computer screen type looking icon, and it's called the real time, right? So we're just going to select it, and now we do see that the modifier has been deselected or is not showing or is not active currently because we selected this over here. So adding a loop. So how do we add a loop, right? We can deselect this using A to deselect, and now we can go with Control R and we're adding a loop over there. So you can currently see that we have lines. If you do scroll, it's going to add more loops onto it. So for example, if we have one of, if for example, I'm just going to deselect that. If we do press Control R to add a loop, we can then deselect it just like it, and now we have a loop around the object. So let's just go to the move tool, and now we're going to drag this down, okay, just like that, and now you can see that we've placed the loop. So if we go over here to the modifier and select the screen, you can now see that the object is the same color, meaning that things are looking right. However, if we do orbit around, we can see now the object, everything is looking okay, right? So everything is looking fine, and that is perfect because now it shows that we've done it correctly. Okay, so that's the difference between a number of objects. So remember, these are vertices, and then we have the edges over there, and then we have the faces. So faces are just a four number of vertices that are selected, and that creates a face. And then faces are also known as four different edges that are selected to create a face. That's just something to keep in mind for later on in the course.